All right, now factory service manual describes on PD20, this is for the R200, some measurements that are that you need to take, and also measurements that are provided, values that are provided, in order to calculate the side spacers that you'll need to get everything set up. So this is what came out of the differential I have. And when you look at the factory service manual, I got a 2.15 and a 2.30. The right is a 215 and the left is a 230. And there's no guarantee that those are going to work for me when I get this all reassembled, because I've pressed on new bearings here and they might have a different thickness than what was in there. And if they do, or what the spec is, if they do, then I'm going to have to make up the difference in the spacer. So this is a good place to start, because ultimately you're going to be looking at what's your backlash between the ring gear and the pinion gear here. Okay, and that's described in the manual. You'll see that in a video clip for me as well, but this is a really good place to start to kind of figure out where you're at. So when you look at the factory service manual, again on PD20, they describe all the values that you'll need in order to calculate those spacers. So there's the sheet right there. So it's a combination of values that are on the case. So you can see here there's value A and B that's on the case, C and D that's on the ring, and then a H prime that's actually painted onto the ring. I'm going to show you those right now. So let's do it in order. Phone here. So AB is on the case. So here's the case, and on the top you'll see that A and B that's actually cast. And if you look closely, it's kind of hard to see sometimes here. If you look closely, you'll see there's a stamp number at the factory right there, and right there, a 4. Okay, so you get those two values off your case. In my case, I wrote them down here. So A is 6, B is 4, and then I need C and D. Now C and D is actually on the case, or the differential case here. C and D. So when you look, you'll see stamped right in there a C and a D. And then you'll look around for the numbers. They're actually stamped down here in the machine portion. Look down in there. See, there's a 5. There's a 7. So those are my other two values. C is 5. I'm sorry, C is 7. Yeah, C is 7. And D is 5. Okay. And the other value that is actually provided on the on this phone down here is right here. It's actually painted right there. It's a -4. So that's your H prime value. Now you'll need 3 other values, E, F, and G, but those are all the ones you're going to have to measure. Okay, so I'll show you how to do that. So E, what I use a piece of glass here, or any flat surface. If you've got a machine, flat surface, great. Piece of glass, great. But I use a piece of tempered plate glass. It's flat. And you put the side bearing assembly in there, so that's the bearing and the race all together right here, okay? And this is the old one, but I'll use it as a demonstration. So it needs to be done before they're put on. So you've got everything there. Then you'll use a either any kind of depth gauge you have. I'm using a dial gauge with this attachment here, so just kind of place it on there. And I get a value of 2.8. I'm sorry, 20.80 millimeters, okay? And you'll see you calculate the difference to get your value for E and F. You do that for both bearings. To get your values for E and F, it's shown right here. You take the difference between the standard, which is 21 millimeters, and what you measured, 20.8, you get a value of 0.2. Both of my bearings were brand new, so they're identical. They should be identical. So it's 0.20, 0.20. Those are my E and F values, okay? Then I got one more value I gotta get, again, using a micrometer or a dial gauge. Measure this, and I get 8.04 millimeters. 8.04. Then you again go back to the, shows this in the manual, factory service manual. And you can see there I got an 8.04, that's that value, minus the standard, which is 8.00, and I get a difference of 0.04. Okay, so those are all of the values you need. And I'll show you here then how you calculate it. And it's, again, this is all in the manual, but you'll see here, it might be a little helpful for you. So there's all my values on the top. Start with the left side, T1. So T1 is A minus C plus D minus H prime times 0.01 plus E plus 2.05. So you do it all, you get about 2.33, but I'm going to use the 2.3, right? So 2.3 is this one right here. So that's what I'm going to use for the left. This is interesting because it actually, this calculation predicted, it matches, I should say, the actual values that were in this differential before when I took it apart. And this differential's never been taken apart and overhauled. So it's from the factory. And the right side, the math is a little different. Again, it's in the factory service manual, PD20, sheet PD20. Do all the math on this one. It came out to 2.10, but the one I have is a 2.15. So you can see here, this is not totally exact, but I came in at 2.33, so you can see I went up. So that's what this is. The right is 2.15. So that's where I'm going to start. And the hope is, oh, another thing. By the way, the right side shims include this 215 and then the standard, the shim, the 80 that measured a little different. So that's the right side. And the left side of the case only gets this one shim. And you'll see how that goes together in another clip. So that's it. This is a good place to start. Take all your stuff, figure out where you're at, and again, a good place to start before you put it all together. All right, now we're going to put the side bearings on the differential carrier, or case, I'm sorry. The manual refers to this as the case, and what we normally think of as the case as the carrier. So you'll notice that in the factory service manual. So this is a really straightforward press using a Harbor Freight 20-ton press. Is a very easy job for that. The only thing I'd point out is that I've been doing this a long time, so everywhere I go, I collect things like this, all different sizes. These are various, bushing and machine tools. And if you're going to do car work like I'm doing, you should look for and get these as much as you can, because you're going to need these some days, and this is one of those. So I've got a piece here that's going to press this on without putting any pressure on the race or the bearing, so it's just on the center hub. So get it squared up and then gently start pumping here, and there it goes. Watch it, make sure you're always making progress here with each pull. It stops, you need to stop, because these things can really overload quickly. So you're going to watch it. It's going down. A little bit more. That's it. Okay, one more thing I want to point out is that the first spacer I used to press it on actually fit nicely on the bearing race, but it was slightly undersized. And so I was actually bearing down on the last pull. I was bearing down on the differential case itself, not the bearing. So it didn't seat completely. I could see through underneath, see the light. There's just a really slight gap. So I pulled the press off and got another spacer that's kind of thin wall that fits on the race but clears the shaft that I'm pressing it onto. So I'll show you here. So you should make sure that that's always the case, or you're going to get a false seating. So I put this back in there and pulled one more half pull, and it seated this thing correctly. That's really important because the side spacing on the differential assumes that everything's seated fully. So make sure you pay attention to that. Okay, now we're going to do the other side. So you just saw me press on the bearing that's on the bottom side. And I'm using a spacer down here to keep it off the deck because there's a little difference on the face of the bearing versus the shaft. So you want to put a spacer in there so you're bearing down not on the bearing but on the shaft of the differential case that we're looking at here. Same kind of setup now on the top. We're using this spacer. There's the bearing. I've all squared it up. I put a little pressure on the press. And now I'm just gonna pull it gently down. There's one. It's making progress. Always watching the bearing. You need to make sure that it's moving and so you don't damage anything. So we're going to pull it down. Now when I get close, I'm going to take some pressure off because I need to adjust this a little bit. There we go. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Some more pressure on it. I've got about 1/8 of an inch to go here. Still pull, pull, pull. It's making progress. I'm down to about 1/16 of an inch. I can see a little light through, just ever so slight. One more pull, a little bit more. You're good, it's all seated. And that's it. We're all done with this. Okay, now we're going to put the ring gear assembly back in. So factory service manual describes how to do this. So you're going to put this in left and right. You're going to put in the preload shims with the bearing races. And then the last spacer that goes in is the standard 8mm spacer. This is on the right side. It's between the case and the preload shim and then the bearing. Okay, so I've got it in there. The trick with this is that when you come to the right side, this is the last bit that goes in, the cone, the race for the bearing is going to want to move around. So what I found is if you put a little screwdriver in here to kind of hold it against the bearing temporarily, okay, well, so it doesn't get out of whack. It doesn't take much. And then you're going to tap the 8mm spacer in from this side, and it's just light taps. And everything's staying nice and cool with the bearing. And now I'm going to take another couple taps. And it's moving the screwdriver out. So let me get that screwdriver out of there. And then I made a tool. This is just like the factory tool, just out of plexiglass around the shop, 1/4 inch. And we're going to drive this the rest of the way in there. And it's not really driving, you're just tapping it in. This is the preload, so that's why there's tension here. Okay, almost in there. That's it. Right? You can, there's the lash, and we're going to check that after we put in the bearing caps and everything. We'll check that, and that comes up next. Okay, so got it all in there. Bolted down the bearing caps here, down to 65 foot-pounds. And then I just installed the dial gauge here, and we're gonna check the how much run out we have here. And so I've set it on 0, and I'm just moving the ring gear, and I get just like it was when I took it apart. It's still 7 thousandths, which is within spec per the factory service manual, so we're good there. So that's all good. Last thing we'll check is we'll put some paste on these gears and then run it with the ring and the pinion together, and we'll see what the pattern looks like. That's also in the factory service manual. That comes up next. Okay, now we're going to look at the wear pattern. You do that by painting on some gear paste. You can get this in yellow, red. Basically, I think all it is an oil-based paint. It's real thick, so it dries right away. Put it on, and then you turn it, and so the gears are dry. There's no oil on there to interfere. And you turn the the ring gear in to engage with the pinion. Roll it back a few times, just using at the flange end, and then you bring it out, and then you'll inspect it here. So I'm going to take the camera off so we can look it up a little closer, see what that pattern looks like. So you'll see, it's kind of hard to see, but right in here you can see the pattern is pretty well centered on the two. See, it's heavy out here, and so it's nice and centered in the gear and the gear tooth, and you can see it's consistent. Same thing here. And if you look underneath, you kind of, it's hard to see, but it's the same. It's a good pattern there. You can see that right there underneath is, see that pattern right there, right here. So this is good. It's nice and centered. Backlash is good at 7 thousandths. So this is ready to close up and put some oil in and install in the car. Okay. The side seals. So find appropriate drivers. Lots of different ways you can do this. I mean, sometimes you can buy them. You can turn them out of wood. I got a lot of these kind of parts sitting around the shop, and I can use these to drive bearings, but I can also use them for these seals. It fits right over there, and then we're just gonna tap it in till the bottom's out right there on the case, and that's it. And the other side's just the same exact thing. Okay, here we are, all done. Of course, didn't cover the kind of the straightforward piece about bolting the cover back on, put a new breather on. You can get those from the dealership still, so that's kind of a nice thing. Of course, put the rear seal in. Don't forget the rear seal on your differential, and then bolted this all back up to spec. So I gotta say, I've done a few of these, and the transmissions as well. Between the transmission overhaul and then the overhaul of the differential, I found it gets rid of virtually all of the howling and all that crap with the 280Z. My car was making a lot of noise, but now it's super quiet, shifts great on the transmission, and then just the no noise coming back from the differential at all. Just a really nice solid couple of projects. If you have any questions, you can put them in the chat on the YouTube video. Thanks for watching, and have fun out there and be safe. Remember that.